Okay, today's lesson is going to be creating a profit matrix. This is part of decision analysis. We're going to be working with a company, a local company. It's trying to decide whether it should stock a perishable product each week. And in this case, as we go through the problem, I'm going to go ahead and start documenting the parameters. This is something you'll quickly do, and it helps save you a lot of time if you begin to write these parameters down in a table on a piece of paper or in a spreadsheet. So we'll go ahead and start with our parameters. And those are going to be the items that we need to use in our calculation, ultimately trying to figure out what the profits are going to be in various demand and production situations. We find out in this case the product costs the company $20 per unit to produce, so that's going to be our variable cost. Variable cost is 20 bucks, and the price that they get from their customers is $25. We also find from the text in our problem here that any product that's not sold by the end of the week can be sold for salvage value of 5 bucks. Salvage value is $5 per unit. You'd rather sell it for 25 obviously, but if you can only get 5, that's better than letting it rot. The company charges itself $1 per unit of lost sales. Lost sales charge of $1 per unit, and there's a $20. So if you decide to produce any of this or stock any of this perishable product, there's a charge of $20. Fixed cost of 20 bucks. That's if you choose to stock any of it, or produce any of it. So let's go ahead. We're ultimately going to try to calculate our profit. So if you think about the things that we're going to need the amount that we stock. So this is the amount that we stocked, or in a lot of cases this would be produced. And let's just say we'll go ahead and plug a number in here so we can do our calculations. And the next is going to be quantity demanded. This is demanded by your normal customers, not the salvage customers, but your normal customers. Let's go ahead and say that's 50 in this case. This is all that we'll need to calculate our profits. Now, how are we going to calculate profits in this case? We need a number of different factors. We'll break it out and we'll go through each one at a time, and we'll just begin to build a formula. This could be done very easily, probably more easily on a piece of paper with pencil and paper. But in Excel it's great because then you can change it and model it and do some other things with it. But anybody should be able to calculate this with hand calculator and a piece of paper and pencil. But the first thing we need for profits is going to be our revenue. Our revenue is going to be our price that we charge our customers times the amount we sold. Well, how many did we sell? In this case, you can only sell as many as you make, but you can't sell all that you make unless the customers want them. So you're going to sell whichever one is least, the amount you produced or the amount that the customers demanded. So Excel makes that pretty easy. It's actually easier to do in your head, but in this case, with Excel, we are going to take our price and we're going to multiply that by the minimum of the amount we produce and the amount that the customers demanded. So it makes our profits $1,250. So as you can see, that's B3 times the minimum of B7 through B8. All right, well, what do we have to take away from that? First thing we've got to take away is our variable cost. Our variable cost is going to be our $20 up here times what? Is it going to be this minimum like we did last time? Well, no. It's going to be the cost times the amount that we produced. Just because we didn't sell enough, we still have to pay for the ones that we made. So we're going to multiply our variable cost times the number that we produced. And I'll go ahead and enter, and you'll see now we're down to $250 in profit. Okay, well, that's our variable cost. What are some of the other costs that we might incur? Well, if we made too many, then we're going to have to sell. We're going to get some money by selling the leftovers to our salvage customer. So let's add some money for our salvage customer. So we're going to say $5 times what? Well, it's only going to happen if we made too many. So let's say if, and we're going to open parentheses to do this in Excel. Again, it's probably easier to do in your head, but with Excel, here's how we do it. If the amount we produced is greater than the amount customers demanded, And now we've got our kind of our logical statement in Excel. Now if that is true, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to take the difference there and multiply it by our salvage value. So we'll say the amount produced minus the amount demanded. That'll give us the leftover. And we're going to multiply that by our salvage value, which was 5. And actually I need to put that inside the if statement. So we'll take it out up here. That was a mistake. We're going to multiply that by our salvage value. And so that's what happens if our logic statement is true. If we made too many, if we made more than was demanded, we do this. If that's not true, what's our salvage money that we're going to get? It's going to be 0 because we didn't even make too many. So in this case, there were no salvage. We didn't make too many because we made and sold the exact, made and demand with the exact same here. So profits are still $250. Okay, well, what else could happen? Well, we could make too few, and then we have this lost customer charge. So it's going to be another if statement. This time we're going to subtract. We're going to take away, and we're going to do it again. We're going to say if. Now in this case, it's going to be that we made too few. So if the amount that we produced is less than the amount that was demanded, what's going to happen? We're going to take the difference again. We're going to say the amount demanded minus the amount produced. And we're going to multiply that now by our lost sales charge. Now that's what's going to happen if we made too few. Well, how much are we going to charge ourselves for lost sales if we didn't make too few? Well, nothing. So we're going to put a comma and a 0. So with an if statement, we have our logic and then a comma, and then what happens if the logic was true, and then a comma, and then what happens if the logic is false. So we'll go ahead and enter again. Now notice that our profit is still $250 because neither one of those scenarios happened. We didn't make too few or we didn't make too many. Now if I start changing these numbers around, our quantity demanded, let's say it was 350. So how many did we make too few this time? Well, we didn't make 200. 250 customers went unhappy, so our profits are going to go to 50. And so if you see in this case, we had 50 produced, 350 demanded. So in this case, we had a large number, 300, that went unhappy. And when you subtract $300 of lost sales charges against our 250 profit that we originally had, profits are going to go to what? Negative 50. Let's make that 300. It would be our kind of our break-even scenario. And if we go back to our 50, we're back to our profits of 250. Let's say that we made too many. Let's say that there were only 25 customers that wanted to buy any. Now look what happens. Now why is that so high? That's because we made all of these and we had all these variable costs, and we were only able to get a little bit by selling it on the salvage market. Selling that extra 25 on the salvage market only got us $125. But if you remember what our costs were, we had to pay $20 for all 50 of those to manufacture them. We're still missing one piece of the puzzle here. Now what would that be? Well, if you remember, we have a fixed cost. Now when is that fixed cost going to kick in? That fixed cost is only going to kick in if we actually make some. So lo and behold, we have another if statement. And this is a pretty easy one. If the amount we produced, which is here, is greater than 0, what happens? Well, we have a fixed cost of 20 bucks. So I'm just going to click on the 20. Now, if our amount we produce is not greater than 0, what's our fixed cost going to be? Well, it's going to be 0. So we're going to put a 0 in there.